See, this is what we do all the time.
It's all good. It's all good.
Oh my God, your voice sounds so great too. Isn't it? Because you do this all the time.
Yeah, I've done this for a long time.
Oh, I love
You
it.
have a great radio voice.
2002.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm sure you've learned things along the way, like how to talk clear and what to say, what not to say, like all the filler words that we're horrible at.
When I started, my first program director said, never say to be honest with you.
Right, because why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yeah, he basically says, like, you have a crutch. Mm-hmm. That was the hardest part. It's like the crutches you have when you talk that you don't realize until you listen to yourself talk.
Right.
And I'm still super critical when I listen to how I sound.
I think we all are.
Oh, God. I mean,
I hate my voice.
I'm my worst critic.
Yeah.
I mean, by far. I'll sit there and I'll, you go back and you edit the audio. You're like, God, I sound horrible.
Or why did I say that or that way? Steph and I were just talking about that.
I always think that.
The biggest thing for me is when I'm interviewing somebody and I'm very big. I don't write questions. I just write bullet points. But then I'll go back and listen back to it and I go, damn, I missed something there.
Yeah.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20. You can always go back and think of what you should.
You can, yeah. I mean, my big thing is I try to listen to what the person's saying.
Right.
Because, you can listen to interviews and, sometimes if you're so caught up in let's go down this path, sometimes they give you something that you never thought of. And you could have, elaborate on it in whatever way it is.
That's why I have my trusty outline.
I do outlines too. To basically, so I know kind of where I want to go with things. But when I'm interviewing somebody, they may say something that gets us off a beaten path.
Right.
It could be something like, hey, I had tacos last night. Well, what do you like on tacos? And it just leads you down the rabbit hole.
That's my favorite part about any of the podcasts we do. The random conversations and the just dives into the wormholes. I love it.
I do stuff like I'll be out and about and things will happen to me. I'll put it in my phone. I'm getting gas this morning. There's a woman and it's Wawa. It's packed. And she's just sitting in her car. And people are waiting to get gas. And I literally pumped $60, $70 worth of gas. And she still hadn't gotten out of her car. I'm like,
what's going on?
That's the stuff you see just in normal everyday life. You're like, what the,
Yeah.
Right. She's not aware of her surroundings. She just doesn't care.
or you see it in airports.
Right.
Just how people act in airports.
Or crowded stores and you're waiting for that parking spot and they get in and then they just sit there and you're like, come on.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Or they block the aisle and you can't get around.
Right.
Because I do all the shopping in my house, so.
Oh, there was a lady at Target the other day that was doing that and she was right in the middle and she was just standing there taking her time and I have my 2 kids and she's unaware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Don't you just want to go up to those people and tap them on the shoulder and say, excuse me, just curious, what's going on? What are you doing? They'd probably look at you with you have 4 eyes.
I just do the nonverbal.
Yeah.
Just so you kind of get the hint.
The finger? Or the look? Which nonverbal cues are you talking about?
Okay. I'm in Publix. There's a woman who is displeased with the bagger. I'm like, this kid's just working hard.
Oh, he's trying.
He clearly was very new at being a bagger. He doesn't know how to bag quite yet. And she is just ridiculing this kid. I'm like,
yeah,
kid's probably 16, 17 years old, who's just trying to make a little money. That's the stuff I see. I just go, oh.
There's no reason for that.
Well, listen, do you know when we start our podcast, I don't know if anyone's heard this, but in the beginning, you hear radioinfluence.com, and then you start to hear our Live Bold and Boss Up jingle. And I think that's really important to note because we are here today with Jason Floyd, who is the COO of Radio Influence, and he is a blessing to us. He edits and pushes out our podcast to all the major platforms. We are actually in one of his studios right now, which is why we sound fantastic. So
Right.
crisp and clear. And I've noticed that the microphones turn off a little bit when I'm done talking and then someone else is talking. I've noticed that. And it picks up and then it closes, so you don't hear like the breathing after. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, that's compression. And so basically, what you know, for people who are not in audio, it's that, you know, if I'm talking, my voice doesn't go into your microphone, things along those lines. And if you don't have that, then you get that bleeding over, which you can you can eliminate a lot of that post-production, but it's just easier if you have it set up when you're doing the live recording that you don't have to, I remember the story where my boss over to the Bucks, Jeff Ryan, says, hey, I know somebody who wants to do a podcast. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. Well, without you and Jerry and Radio Influence, Live Bold and Boss Up would not be what we are today. You guys help us with everything from editing, like Ash said, and just, you know, entering the podcast world with having no idea what to do. You and Jerry have been so helpful, and it's been great the past 2 years working with you. So thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast. So we wanted to, since you are an expert in the podcast and radio world, which you have a very impressive background, get your thoughts on why a business or any entity would want to create a podcast and what are the benefits of it?
The simple way I put it to people is you're controlling your message. Whatever your business is, we all have our brand. What is our brand? You know, like for me, basically, because I'm involved in multiple businesses, it's like, okay, how can we control the narrative? You know, like you think about, you know, you think any type of public relations person, they're like, how do I control the narrative? No matter what their business is, maybe they're, you know, they work for a Fortune 500 company, maybe they work for a sports team, they're trying to control the narrative. And that's like, you know, let's just say you have, let's say you're a restaurant, just because I'm in the restaurant business, is you have the ability of how do we present our product in the way we want to present the product. And that to me is always the thing with a business when they come to us and say, hey, okay, we're considering doing a podcasting. I just say that you have to consider it part of your marketing of how you're presenting your product, no matter what the product is, and how do you get it in front of eyeballs. And obviously podcasting has changed a lot over the couple of years. I think you guys have seen in 2 years you've been doing it. When you guys stepped in, video was kind of out there in terms of doing podcasting, but go find me a podcast that really doesn't do video. It's just, and it's not easy to do video. I've done video for a long time, and you got to get used to a camera being in front of your face or not even realizing the camera's in front of your face. You know, like when I'm in my home studio, I've got a camera a foot in front of me, 2 feet in front of me. It's to the point now I don't even realize it's there. But it's also like, you know, where we're at in the marketing world today is like TikTok has become so huge. IG Reels, so huge. And so that's why I tell these businesses of you can do things to get you in front of your customer that you're looking for.
So podcasting isn't just about audio. It's about video. It's about all the social media and other platforms that are out there as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. It's about utilizing all the platforms that are out there. Unfortunately, in today's world, we're a pay-for-play market. When you think about it, you know, anyone listening knows if you put something on Facebook or you put something on Instagram, TikTok, if you're not putting money behind it and you don't have a big following, you're just not going to get the traction you want. I mean, we all battle with that. And then it becomes of, okay, well, how much money do I spend behind, you know, posting this video? And, you know, kind of, and sitting there and saying, okay, what is my return on investment of that video? And I think we all battle with that in business every day of sitting there going, okay, if I've got a message I want to get across, what's the dollar I want to put on that in terms of, say, I'm going to do, whether it's, a Facebook boost, Instagram boost, something on TikTok, something on Google. And, fortunately for me, being around the people that I'm around, I get to talk to people who are way smarter than me. Like the big thing for me is I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want to be able to learn something from somebody, because I think we've all been in that room where you're like, man, this person thinks they're the smartest person in the room. And it's like, we can all learn from each other. And that's why I try to put myself in those environments. Like, okay, how can I learn more about Google SEO? How can I learn about how do I get people that, are looking to listen to Live Bold and Boss Up podcast? How do I get to that person? And that's why I put myself in those rooms and just try to educate myself.
Yeah. Do you is there a sole purpose of a podcast? Is it to monetize it and make money, or is it to market your business, or is there one purpose, or is there lots of different?
It depends on what you're trying to get out of it. There are some people that it is all about monetization of it. And I tell people, it's a long build. I think a lot of people have this thought of, I'm going to start a podcast and 50,000 people are listening to me. Right. I don't want to bust anybody's ego. Reality is that's not going to happen.
Well, and also I don't think it's a good idea to do anything just with the monetization passion behind it. I think you need to have other passions on why you're doing it.
Oh, totally. This is a genre that if you don't love doing this, it's going to get old real quick to where you're going to get burnt out on doing it. And I've seen it happen with people, and it has to be a passion where you love doing it. And the people who download and listen to your show, whether it's on an audio platform or a video platform, they're going to see that. There was an incident that happened recently where there was a comment that a listener had, and they were basically telling the host, I can tell you're not having a good time on this episode.
Ouch.
Yeah, it happens. And I tell people all the time, we're all trying to put our best product forward. That's why I tell people, if you're recording and you don't like the way it sounds, just start over. I've been in radio since 2002. Do it all the time. There's plenty of times I'll sit at home, I'll be recording a show, and I may be 5 minutes into it. I'm like, God, this sucks.
That has happened to us plenty of times where we'll record a whole episode and we're like, no, it wasn't it. It just didn't feel right.
I had an episode about, so I do 2 episodes a week. One episode's by myself where I'll have a couple interviews, and then the other one is I have a co-host. But the one by myself, it was about 2 weeks ago. Recorded the episode. Went away from the computer for a while, do some other things. And I was doing something around the house. And I go, that sucked. And I literally redid the whole show. I literally had I recorded probably 30 minutes of audio. And I was just like, it's just not good. And
okay, what was it about that sucked? Was it the topic, or was it your discussion around the topic?
Delivering the message. Because I think and I think you guys can relate to this, is you go, okay, I'm recording today or tomorrow, and you have all these thoughts of how you want to present what you're talking about. And it sounds so great in your head. Then you get in front of the microphone and you're like, oh crap, that did not come out the way I wanted to. And it's one of these things of it's repetition. It takes time to kind of get used to it. But I always say is you got to practice what you preach. You don't want to be that person that's say as I do, not as I do. I think we've all kind of been around those people where
do I
say, not as I do. I think we've all been around those people where you're just like, okay, but you're not preaching what you're saying. Right. And so that's what it is for me, is sitting there going, okay, I got to put out the best product possible, because you never know, there may be someone new listening to you that's never listened to you before. And so it's like an audition every time you do a show.
Right. Which is why it's always important to do research beforehand, come prepared. And especially if you have a guest on, you don't want to ask them to re-record, No.
No.
That's why you always want to put your best foot forward.
The biggest issue with guests these days, and usually because I deal with a lot of PR people, I'll say, hey, can we make sure that they're on Wi-Fi? Because we live in a Zoom world. We all use Zoom, and it's like, okay, let's make sure that they're not in their car, and now we're dealing with a cell phone signal, and especially when we're talking about video, we're all looking for high quality video that someone's going. No one wants to watch a video on YouTube and the product's just crap.
Right.
Yeah, and then we've had that happen a couple times where the audio sounds bad or it breaks up, or then we're like, can you repeat what you said? It was breaking up.
It's so embarrassing. Yes.
Yeah. Make sure they have a good mic or like sound speaker on them too.
Well, this is like a perfect, intro into one of the questions that we wanted to ask you is, how is it important, or what's the importance of recording in like a studio like this? What do you recommend for someone starting and doing a podcast, right? And they could come in. Can they come in here and like rent the podcast room?
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me, I will gladly let you rent the podcast room. Literally, I have someone come in right after we do this one. The thing is, audio quality has to be the number one priority. And I tell people is, think about when you're driving around town and you're listening to whatever it is, whether it's, a podcast, or maybe it's on, Spotify, or it's, Sirius XM, or maybe it's terrestrial radio. If the sound quality is not good, are you going to keep listening?
No.
And that's why I tell people, that's, but there's a lot of ways that you can. And when people ask me, they'll say, hey, what can I do equipment wise? And I'll say, what's your budget? Right. Because if you tell me you got a $5,000 budget, I can give you a dope setup. But if you tell me I've got $200, okay, I can make something work. And because there's so many things that have been created. Like I tell people, if you're just sitting at home, you can go get a Blue Yeti microphone for $150. And that's going to give you high level sound. We actually on Sunday or Saturday after the game, we're doing this new post-game video with Gene and Dave. The microphone we're using is a Blue Yeti.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Gene. How's he doing?
Good, man. Good.
I love his voice. Like whenever we're at an event and you go up and you say hi to Gene, it sounds like you're listening to like a Bucks game day. He's like, hey, how you doing? It's exactly like that. I love it so much. It's so nostalgic.
Yeah. And I don't care what town we're in. If you are with Gene, he is going to get stopped about 20 times. Wow. The best story I have with Gene is, so this is probably 15 years ago. We're in New Orleans for a game, and we go to Drago's, which is a popular restaurant there in New Orleans. And we're down dinner, and he goes, Jason, you got to get the charboiled oysters. Now, I remember growing up seeing my parents eat oysters, but they would eat the raw oysters. I was like, I don't know. And he goes, Jason, you got to try it. Meanwhile, I'll say we ordered about 3 trays of them after the first one came. And every time we go to New Orleans, we'll be in New Orleans in a couple of weeks, we go to one of 2 places. We either go to Drago's or Royal House, and charboiled oysters is pretty much all we get.
You're making me hungry now.
I know.
It sounds so good. But yeah, I remember whenever we first started out, all we had was my laptop, and I think we ran into a lot of sound issues, and that's whenever you and Jerry were like advising us on, what equipment to get. And so we got some equipment, got some mics, but then even now, we reach out to you because, something's not right on the condenser.
Yeah. But it's like I've told you, there are mistakes we all make. I still make to this point, where, if you're recording into a computer and you realize that you're recording your internal microphone and you're not recording, your mixer audio, or, but there's so many things now, I set y'all with the Rodecaster Pro. It's an expensive unit for, if someone doesn't, have that kind of money. It's a $600 unit, but it's an all-in-one unit. And I think the big thing about it is you can record right on the unit, which makes it so easy. But I think what a lot of people that will come to us is they just don't have the knowledge. And the big part of what we do is it's just not about, hey, we can get your show out on all the platforms and all those lines. It's about okay, we can do the production. Myself and my business partner Jerry, we met when we were both at Clear Channel, which is now iHeartRadio. And I mean, we worked together for all 10 years that I was at iHeart. We both left at pretty much the same time. And everyone thought I was going with him over, and I was like, no. I literally got confronted in the parking lot.
Really?
Oh.
By my boss. He goes, "You're going across the street." I go, "No, I'm not." I go, "I'm not."
That's funny. Well, what was I going to say? Shoot, you're going to have to edit this part out. I was going to say, being here in your studio is, I mean, Ash and I are going to get spoiled. We were saying earlier, because normally we're like, trying to control everything and, have to make sure we have everything right. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't need my laptop out. You're going to do it. So no, this is great. And
yeah, and for me, like, I was an audio guy that I had to learn video. And that was like one of the things, like, as I think about, like, even before I started Radio Influence and I was doing some other things, I wish, like, back in 2012 that I would have, like, taken some video classes or something along those lines. I mean, I've learned as I go. I mean, I work for another company for Daily Fantasy Sports. That I've learned a lot about, like, how you do things, how you record things. And that to me is the biggest thing. And, now I'm kind of at that point where it's like, I'm trying to put a big thing on TikTok and Instagram Reels, because it's the way to attract new people to our product that normally wouldn't see it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you have to be on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all of them in order to be successful?
At the podcast?
Yeah.
The podcast piece?
Not in life.
I think it's not the smartest idea to not be on all of them. Like, I can understand why you may say, I don't want to be on those platforms. And I think the one that people are probably the most they're not sure if they want to be on is TikTok. TikTok's terms of service are not user-friendly. I mean, there's videos out there. People have talked about what's in it. So, but like, if you think about it, when you're scrolling down Instagram is what TikTok is now. I mean, how many times do you actually see a photo?
Yeah, I normally am looking at the videos and the reels and the stories.
Or how many people you actually follow come up on your timeline.
Right.
It's a lot of people you don't follow. And so, like, that's what I've heard people complain the most about Instagram is, if I'm going on there and I have Instagram because I want to see what my friends and family are doing, the reality is you don't see it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, probably the last picture I saw was of you from the other day.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
The birthday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was surprised for sure. That was awesome.
That was great.
So can you help people with video too?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say is my video abilities have a limit. And I'm upfront with people about that. Like, there's certain things, and I look at as I get into bigger projects, I'll probably just bring in a video company to handle it. But I'm just learning every day of, okay, how, and a lot of it is I'll see things on YouTube and I go, how'd they do that?
Right.
I have a producer that I work with that he's very good on video. So I'll reach out to him and I'll say, hey, how did you do this? Or how did they do that? And then go, okay, how much is it going to cost me to be able to do all that? Because the thing where it really gets you is, you get these high-end video cameras. I mean, they're not cheap, especially if you want to shoot in 4K. I mean, but that's where industry's heading. I mean, you have to have some type of video component, even if it's just, okay, we're going to record everything on video, but we're going to cut up clips to put on social media. Because ultimately, I think the thing that we all have the hard time of is, how do we convert that person on Instagram to go to our bio, click that link, that probably goes to another page that then probably has all the links for where they can watch the podcast. Like, to me, that's the thing we have is, DJ Ekin does some stuff with me, and me and him have this conversation all the time is how do we get someone to click 2 or 3 links to get to our show? Or are we just in a society that we're a feed society, that people are just going to take in what they do based on an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, things along those lines.
Right. No, that's interesting.
Well, and too, I'm hearing you chat about, posting stuff on like TikTok or, YouTube, right? And my kids love watching everyone else's videos on YouTube, which is kind of annoying. I know some parents have their own thoughts about that. And I hear them say, oh, when was this videoed? Oh, this was yesterday. And you can see when this person created this video, and that's important to them too, which I thought was interesting.
I remember one of my nephews, who's now 19, it had to be when he was like 8, 9 years old, and he's watching someone play a video game on YouTube, and in my head going, why the hell would somebody do that? Now look at Twitch and how many people are making money. It's like, I think about when I was in school, that thought was like, well, why do you play video games? You can't make that a career. And now look at people who they've made it a career, whether it's playing it or creating games. I mean, there's a school in Orlando that is a legit university that is all about video games. And but I think it's also like in this industry, the digital media industry, we're all evolving. And it's like, well, what's that? We all want to be on it. What's that next platform that's going to take off that we need to be on? And there's just so many of them.
So you help out so many different podcasts. You must have met really cool people, whether they're famous or not. Share with us someone that you've met that's really cool, famous or not famous.
It doesn't need to be just through the podcast, but in your radio career.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people. I think when I worked in terrestrial radio, being here in Tampa, how many professional wrestlers just walked through the building, and a lot of them that were not even famous. Like, everyone knows who the Bella Twins are. Back in 2005, 2006, they were coming out to gigs for FLZ, and no one knew who they were.
Wow.
They were just, normal people. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, when you're around celebrities, is people get this aura of them, and it's just like they're just regular people. Like I sit there and I've been traveling with the Buccaneers for 18 years, 19 years. It's always interesting to me to see how fans react, and for me, I'm just like, well, that's just John,
right?
But there's a lot of times you get, I think the thing is for me, like being around a lot of sports guys, is just how down to earth they are. And, sometimes I feel bad for them because they just can't go out and have dinner on their own, I
don't feel too bad for them.
I've seen situations where, I remember a situation where we had to get someone out of a room in a restaurant because fans was saying some choice words.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess if you're not, because you always have fans that love you, and then I'm sure you have fans that don't love you too. Maybe they're on another team or.
Yeah, like it's like I say this like in the podcasting radio world, like not everyone who listens is going to love you.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest part to get past. Is like when you get that negative comment on social media and you're just like, and it gets to us all, but there becomes a point where you're just like, whatever,
Because you could have 100 positive comments, we love you, and then that one negative comment gets to you and eats at you.
Well, think about it from a business perspective. We're all looking for these 5-star Google reviews, because what do people do when they might be using you as a business? Well, they're looking at Google reviews. And when you get that 1-star, 2-star, and the biggest thing for me with those is, did that person truly utilize my business? Or is it someone who wants to make our business look bad?
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, I remember we used to work with Chef Brian Duffy when he did a podcast, and he was in town and we were out having dinner, and he was talking about a particular website out there that people go to for restaurant reviews. And he said, he goes, the biggest problem with that platform is, he goes, I don't know if you are truly in my building or you are 500 miles away. And that's something that's always stuck with me is when you get a negative review, did that person truly utilize your services or not? Or is it someone who is a competitor of yours?
That's a good perspective.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we deal with a lot with that, with just being in the staffing industry. People leave companies bad reviews. Maybe they, had a bad day and something happened, and then they, automatically just fired off a 1-star or whatever. But that hurts now other people looking at their reviews, but it doesn't accurately reflect that company.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen situations where an ex-employee has said things about a employer, and some employers will get very offensive, and they will, especially if they know it's not true. They might there might be a legal letter that magically gets sent to that person that says, get rid of that comment or else.
Right. Well, is there any other advice or information that you want to give to anyone who's thinking about starting a podcast or, on the fence of whether or not they should do it or anything along those lines?
The two things I would say is, A, whatever type of niche that it's in, go out and listen to those type of podcasts. And then B is how will you be different than those podcasts? What is the reason someone's going to tune in to listen to you? Like if you're doing a show based on Tampa news, well, what other Tampa news sites are out there and what are they doing on podcasts, and what can you bring that's different, that's going to make you unique where people want to tune into you?
That is great advice. I love that.
I love that too. Be yourself, right? You are unique.
Yeah.
Of yourself. So.
And also I think is let people into your life as much as you want to let them in. I think we all have a barrier that we're going to put up. For me, like, you do not hear me talk about my wife very much. And it's because of, I don't want any drawbacks to come to her because of what she does. And because my wife's not on social media at all. So you'll hear me mention her every once in a while. But I think if you ask my core listener, they go, what's Jason's wife's name? I don't think they know. I think they just know Jason has a wife. That's it. That's all they know. They just, but it's also like, how can you make yourself relatable to that person that's listening? You can talk about, something that happened in your everyday life. I mean, we all go through it, right. But also I just think it's, it lets everyone relate to who you are as a person, that you're just not this is a podcast host I listen to. Mm-hmm. I think we all can relate to that.
I relate to what you just said, because sometimes whenever I'm listening back to the podcast that we just recorded and I'm sending in the edits and I say I make a mistake, sometimes I keep it there because I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't have to be perfect. I can say something and maybe stumble in my words or say something stupid, and people may relate to that because, I'm not perfect and we make mistakes.
Yeah, we did debate that like for a while on some of these things. We're like, oh, I said this. What do you think? Should we take it out? Yeah.
Yeah, I rarely take anything out.
Really?
I mean, the only time there may be an edit is if it's more of a, you're with my co-host, if there's a technical glitch and, hey, we got to kind of, clean it up because he doesn't have, the speed of internet that I have. Sometimes that happens, but outside of that, there's a rarity that I edit anything.
No, I love that you said that. I'll have to keep that in mind as I'm listening to ours.
I mean, look, I think if I truly sat there and edited my show, I would take out every time I say
And I've done that. Jerry probably hates me for it.
I do it on shows. Yeah, there's some shows that look, we're trying to we want to make the listening experience the best
Right.
for that. I always say is like in my terrestrial radio days, we're talking to the masses. In podcasting, I'm talking to that one person that maybe they're in their car, maybe they're at the gym or they're at home, you know, however they may listen to podcast. And I'm like, I'm talking to that one person,
Right.
you know, and I think that one of the greatest things about this genre is when I get to meet those people and you put a face to actually who listens. And sometimes you're surprised who listens.
Yes. Very much surprised.
Oh yeah. There's times I've gotten text messages and for people that I'm very close with and had no clue they listened.
Right.
No clue.
Yeah, no, I do love that. Like the random person that I see at the baseball field and they'll be like, oh, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, you did? Thank you. Like there's people that actually listen. Just kidding. But Jason, this has been awesome. Coming to your place and recording here. I think it just gives us, I mean, not a whole new perspective because we've recorded like early on. I think our first episode, we came to you.
Yeah.
It was in a different studio in Tampa.
Yeah. But no, it's good to come to your home and record here and get a chance to talk to you. And I think that you have some valuable tips on what people can, you know, think about whenever they're considering a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think for people who are trying to start a podcast, I think for a lot of people, the easiest thing is to, you know, rent a studio, you know, whether it's me or somebody else, just because it gets you, you know, it gets you kind of understanding what it takes to do a show. You know, I think, you know, there's just so many podcasts out there. I mean, literally anyone can start a podcast. But it's about making sure you're putting out that high quality content that, you know, you may not necessarily be able to do if you're, you know, in a home, you know, you're in your spare bedroom.
Right. Totally.
Right, exactly.
No, thank you so much. This has been fun. And
we feel spoiled now. And we're really looking forward to hearing this after experiencing the podcast room. But you have one here in downtown St. Pete, one in Tampa.
Yeah.
Right? So if whatever side of Tampa Bay you're on, you can come to Jason's podcast room and record. And I'm sure we'll put all the details in the show notes. And until next time, live bold and boss up.